sometimes I've been asked to give an update on how things are going here, and I never seem to quite get as much time as I might like to work on things. There's all kinds of things that keep me busy. So, and sometimes Saturdays I just have to rest a lot of the time. But I'm trying to make progress slowly but surely on things, like you may have seen on the Grand Marquis. I may even look at some things now that I hadn't shown before. Here we have a Sears Craftsman lawn tractor. This was given to me because all the oil had drained out of the engine somehow. It was tipped up, and then someone started it up with no oil in it, and it seized up the engine. So this is going to probably need a new engine put in it. It's a Sears riding mower, 10 horsepower. So eventually I may happen across another riding lawnmower engine that I can put in this. And let's see what we've got in here. Now, I wish I was better on organization and neatness, but I'm kind of the world's worst, so stuff is kind of a mess here. But we've got in here, here's a 2-cycle edger, and I haven't tried this yet. This was given to me at an estate sale, and so that's something I'd like to get going. There's the sewer rooter. Luckily I haven't had to use this in a while. We put a drain screen on the bathtub that keeps hair from going down the drain, and so that seemed to alleviate a lot of the sewer clogs that we've been having in the past. So the less I have to use that thing, the better, but at least I've got it for when I need it. Here's the 1991 Grand Marquis. I'm going to try and see if I can borrow the fan shroud out of this and try it out on the 78 Grand Marquis. I don't know if it's going to fit or not, but we'll just see. Here's a air conditioner for a camper, and I think this is going to need a recharge of the refrigerant system. This was also given to me, but I haven't ascertained the operational status of it, but I think that's what the problem was said, that it needed the refrigeration system evacuated and recharged. And here's the pump engine. I borrowed components off of this to fix the air compressor. And here's some Organist 1982's bicycles. And let's see what else we've got here. I got some ladders at an auction recently, but the wind ended up blowing them over. And here's the fan. I want to repaint this fan and get it set up in the barn. Here are my 3 lawnmowers. This one, I put a fuel shutoff valve on it because the carburetor was getting gummed up with old varnishy gas. And so I got this one working again. Here's a lawn boy that was also given to me, and this has probably got carbon in the cylinder. It starts up and it runs. I'll try and give a demonstration of it sometime. It starts up and it runs, but it won't run under any load. When you put a load to it, like some grass, it just stalls. So I've read that's due to carbonization in the cylinder. But it seems like it may be a complicated process to disassemble that engine and get the carbon out of it. Here's a Sears Craftsman reel mower with a Tecumseh engine. And this runs, but just barely. I think it just needs some carb cleaning. So I'll try and demonstrate these sometimes. Here's a refrigerator that I need to put somewhere. I just got this at an auction. I had to get the truck unloaded, so I just set it here on the sidewalk. And I'll need to bring it inside. The problem with this is the fan. The fan motor, the wires to the coil on the fan motor had broken, and so the compressor will run on this and it'll chill, but there's not the proper performance of it. So I need to try and see if I can get another fan motor for this. I got this for $2.50 at an auction. And it's made by General Motors, Frigidaire. And I just put the rest of the stuff inside of here. So this is a project for another day. Here's the tractor. I haven't done anything with the tractor yet, but I don't ever send anything to the junkyard, and I don't ever sell anything either. So there's never a danger of any of these devices getting junked or something, just because I can't get around to working on them, or they're not as high priority as some things. They're in safekeeping here until they can receive the attention they need. This is a tractor where the connecting rod cracked on one of the pistons because the rod bolts, or the rod bearing bolts, came off. And I do have a piston for it, so someday we'll get this going again. Here's the truck. I try to drive the truck every weekend, and it's been doing okay. It just went into the shop and had all the U-joints replaced, new brake master cylinder, new wheel cylinders on the rear, and I think it had an alignment done on it as well. Here's the 90 Grand Marquis, which I pulled out of its former place so that I could work on it more easily. And here's the 1970 International bus, and it still needs to have a new carburetor put on it, or a carburetor rebuild. Here's the Lincoln. We've been driving the Lincoln most of all because it kind of is the best performing of anything, and I've had no trouble with it. Here's the white Grand Marquis. It's got its title, registration, and insurance now, and tags. And the transmission shifts through all the gears, but it's got bad brake rotors. It's got warped rotors so that when you step on the brake pedal it starts pulsating. So I'll try and get it started up here sometime, but it's going to need some more work on it to really be able to be driven. It probably is going to need to go into the brake shop, and typically when I take these cars into the shop to have them do brakes, U-joints, and all that stuff, it's fairly expensive. So I'm going to need to probably wait on it, because I like to make sure that these cars are taken care of the best they can be. This one just had about $800. The Lincoln had about $800 worth of suspension, alignment, and brake work done on it. And I'm trying to think of, it had to have a lot of, or it had to have a new rear axle put on it and new rear wheel bearings. That was the most expensive thing. But you don't ever want to mess around with the U-joints, because on the Grand Marquis they ended up falling apart and the driveline dropped out while I was driving it. So some things I just leave to the repair shop, just because I don't really have the time or the expertise to do them. I might like to try sometime, but when it's a vehicle that's got to get you to work, it's sometimes easier just to have a professional do it, because they can work on it all day long, even when you're doing something else. Here is the Nissan. The Nissan still needs a new fuel pump. It's got all of its title and registration and everything ready for it, and so someday I'll get a new fuel pump on it. I kind of pulled it out. It was just sort of sitting over here. I need to get the tractor back in there and mow. So sometime we'll get the Nissan going again. And here's the 1980 International. And I just haven't been able to do much to it. I've given the highest priority as far as projects to things to keep the road drivable cars going on the road, and I've had to do other things as well. So we'll eventually get what we got to do on this is to pull the transmission out, because it's got leaks in the freeze plugs behind the flywheel. We've got to take the flywheel off. We've got to pull the transmission and the clutch. So there's the 1980 International. Here's the 78 Ford pickup. We haven't done anything really with the pickup except just sort of pull it away from here And so we're going to try and put the alternator back on it and get it running again. And here's the Dodge van. I got a lot of these vehicles parked up here in this parking area probably about a month ago. Got these things started up, and the Dodge van drove real well. Transmission shifted good and everything. It needs repairs on the seat before it'll pass its inspection. And we'll take a look at it here. It's just full of all kinds of junk. But it still does about as good as it used to. There's just tons of junk back there, some of which needs to go to the landfill. I just need to gather up the trash and make a trash run here sometime and get the usable stuff put somewhere. But the Dodge van is just doing about like it always did. And here's the air compressor, the 1930 Ford, or I don't know if it's a 29 or a 30 Ford Model A. And I looked at this a little bit. I think the problem with this is in the ignition. I took the distributor cap off of it, and I think the problem is with this lead that comes from the coil. I need to do some more testing on it. Probably should... Oh, I need to see what I did with the distributor body. Oh, there it is. I just sort of set it off to the side. Here's the Lodestar 1700, and let's see if we've got a battery on this one. It may be getting too dark to really do much. No, I don't have the battery on it. But this one's been driven recently and it's doing pretty good. And I've got the new fuel system on it with the fuel couplers. I took a suggestion from a viewer about putting a female coupler on the bus end. So I've got this little converter here, which is a male-to-male coupler, so I can use it on the other bus, which I've equipped with the new fuel connector. Here's the 1959 Ford, and I'm a little scared to open this up. It's got a 292 V8 in it, but there might be hornets and wasps in there. So sometime I'll try and open this up and we can do a more complete video on it. About, I don't know how many years ago, 7 years ago or so, I filled the cylinders with Marvel Mystery Oil and got it to crank over, but it's never fired up. And it probably hasn't fired up in many years. But it's here. It's in a protected environment. So someday it'll get going again. It's going to be one of the more difficult ones to work on, though. And here's the 77 Ford. And I drove this down to the 69 Ford, or the 69 International, try and inflate the tires, but I didn't have any luck. I hooked up an air chuck to the tire, to the valve stem, and I couldn't get any air into it at all. So I don't know how I'm going to fix this tire. It's got a tire that's completely flat on it, but it was running when it stopped. It ran good, but just a tire had gone flat. Here's the 74 GMC, and it's doing pretty good. We'll come around to the front of